By like 2022, it started, this AI era has begun, we can say that officially. And since 2022, the phishing emails has been hacked up by 1,265%. And nearly 95% attack begins with phishing. So breach cost again, by 2024, the cost of breach in the second half of 2024, average cost was 4.9 million US dollar. And the last one is quite alarming. In the second half of 2024, the AI usage in cyber attack surged by 700%, which is like 7 times more than it was there. So like if we speak about financial services and bankings in Europe and North America, major banks targeted by AI generated emails. So it's a hyper-personalized, customized email using, again, deepfakes, and then they fake like the voice and the email writing style of top executives within finance department, investment department. And one of the European bank, suffered a breach of 5 million US dollar. Considering from the global supply chain risk, AI enhanced ransomware forcing shutdown of one critical supply chain node in Asia and Europe, again, causing the damage of 3 million US dollar, and it also risked the global supply chain risk. And lastly, in terms of North America and Middle East, the energy sector, again, they targeted, this was very advanced, AI-enabled threat actor targeted the critical OT, operational technology platform of the energy industry. And that almost risk again, the loss of energy grid, and it can be risking the complete nationwide power and utility supply. We need to have regulatory oversight. We need to follow the best practice when implementing any sort of these things. In terms of the overall global evolution of security and resilience related regulations, it started with the National Information Security Directive. Then the European Union mandated every financial entity to implement the DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act. Doctor has covered everything in detail related to the Cyber Resilience Act and the AI Act in the European region. Every standard mandate the organizations to have 4 things implemented. One is definitely cyber resilience. Second is the immediate response to any sort of threat actors, so enhanced monitoring of threat intelligence and the thwarting of any sort of actors. The third one is response and resilience plans. So again, it's part of the cyber resilience, but there are certain specific requirements to be covered. And fourth is the awareness, where employees play the vital role. When we monitor the dark web, there is a franchise model of threats which is going on, the threat campaigns, where any particular, on one side we suffer problem related to the employee awareness, but on the other hand, any sort of unskilled or semi-skilled curious individual sitting in underdeveloped, developing country can participate in this franchised model of threat campaign just by if the person got capability just to simulate phishing email, and then gradually the overall infiltration will be passed on to the more serious threat actors involved. So that is how AI is enabling sort of franchise model to infiltrate any sort of critical system within the organization. Now with the AI Act, what Europe is targeting to go into the granularity of each particular design element of the system and try to cascade down sort of the regulatory oversight on every designing element pertaining to the system. So it's a very detailed one. Again, they are updating the regulations. It's going to be a risk-based approach. So let's say if we are instrumental to implement the AI platform for 5 different processes within the business, it will always go through the risk assessment done, what the exposure is there in terms of implementing the system, and how controls will be implemented pertaining to mitigate every risk that has been identified. From the governance elements, it's good to look at that from the best practices, because right now we didn't ask to legal yet, but I'm not very sure whether we are mandated to adhere to those requirements or not. I would tend to say that it's a spectacular convergence of all of these requirements which were there. And it has been updated on the previous version, which is version 2. There are 13 very detailed controls with extensive granularity on every of those technical controls, which has been clarified by the regulator. One, and first and foremost, is cyber resilience. So this is literally implementing the business continuity system for your cybersecurity, let it be your SOC or your cyber defense systems. So it's a very systematic approach, very well structured, tailored to the cater to the various organizations' need that has been articulated by desk, where it starts by conducting the risk assessment, then what are your key critical cybersecurity dependencies, and if any particular threat actor evolves, then how you're gonna ensure that the business operations continue even when the organization is facing the cyber breach. The second is data masking. So again, this is quite advanced and very detailed controls that is there in version 3, where we need to mask data. So again, this is a risk-based approach. We first need to get this. All of these things are quite cross-functional requirements that have been added by the Dubai Electronic Security Center. So we first need to understand from the business what data should be masked, do the risk assessment based on that, and then various controls framework that has been given, like what particular algorithm and the design should be followed to mask the data. Let it be payroll related data, finance data, investment, any sort of utility process related data. Third is, very strengthened and specific control on the data leakage prevention. We are working on that project right now. It's a very specific controls now, like, how the data leakage should be implemented based on the classification scheme of the organization. This DLP is not like a, mainstream control which was there in the version 2. Now it's very detailed. And specifically for the information which has been classified at the topmost label of your organization's classification scheme, there are certain sort of controls that must be implemented. So that is already covered in the data leakage prevention or data loss prevention tools. And last one is zero trust. Now, zero trust was there in the version 2 also. Many of you might be aware of this. But this time, zero trust, it's a very specific things where the library of technical controls have been explained by them in the training. And it's like, clear-cut implementing, never trust, always verify mechanism for any sort of IT privilege accounts where we have developers working. We can be having a lot of privilege accounts, especially with the IT team. So how every particular access case will be granted based on what particular logic mechanism, how that will be verified, what are the approval cycle which is in place. So all of these things are quite structured, very well written and extensive in Dubai Electronic Security version 3. So the way threat landscape is evolving is drastically alarming, like, the kind of threat actors that are leveraging the AI-enabled things and launching the attacks using deepfakes and other mediums that we are aware of, and trying to impersonate identities. And considering this evolution in the threat landscape, there are a lot of AI-powered or AI-enabled cybersecurity measures that are also there in the market. But right now, the picture is very balanced, where the bad actors are also leveraging the platforms, and then there are cyber defense mechanisms which is also leveraging the AI platform to provide better resilience. But in meantime, still, there is not enough clarity on the regulatory requirement, like what should be done, how should be done. It's good to say that, like, we go ahead with any sort of AI implementation carefully. Wherever it's not clear from the governance perspective, it's always good to document and, like, determine the next decision based on the risk assessment done. That's like the final message that I wanted to deliver.